Hi there, welcome to Raelene Maths. In this sequel to I Teach Maths Differently, I'm going to look at a second approach for solving absolute value equations and inequalities. In the first video, where I showed a different approach to solving these, we talked about absolute value as meaning the distance in one dimension. And so the absolute value of x minus 5 equal to 7 means that the distance between x and 5 is 7 spaces. So the distance is 7. And so the 5 then is really some kind of center. From the point of view of x, we're saying that x is 7 spaces away from 5. So if we represent the distance in any direction from a center as the radius, we can see that we really have a circle picture here. And we want x to be exactly 7 spaces away from 5, which puts x along the boundary and also on the x-axis. So if we start at 5 and we increase 7 spaces, 5 plus 7 takes us to an x-coordinate of 12. If we go 7 spaces to the left of 5, or 5 minus 7, that takes us to an x-coordinate of negative 2. So our solution to the first equation is x either equals negative 2 or 12. Now in the second case, the interpretation is slightly different. We still have a center of 5. I'm just going to put C under the 5 here, and D, or radius, under the 7. So we still have a center of 5, and we have a radius of 7, but this statement says that we want x to be more than, not just is, but more than 7 spaces away from 5. So to be more than the radius away from the 5 means to be outside the circle. But we also need x to be on the x-axis because we have distance in one dimension when we have absolute value. And so x is going to be any point that's outside the circle on the x-axis. We don't include the endpoint values of 12 because we are not asking that x is equal to a distance of 7 away from the center. So we exclude the endpoint values of negative 2 or 12, and we get a solution that says x is less than negative 2 or x is greater than 12. In the third case, we have a slightly different statement. We have that the distance between x and 5 is less than 7 spaces or exactly equal to 7 spaces. As we pointed out earlier in the blue case, for x to be exactly 7 spaces away from the center, we are points on the circle. So x in this case does get to be negative 2 or 12, just like it did in the blue case, because we have an equal to in both of these questions. But the less than is saying that x is going to be less than 7 spaces away from the center. In other words, the x-coordinates are also going to be inside the circle. And so we are going to include all of the x-coordinates in between negative 2 and 12 as well as equal to those endpoints. So our solution says negative 2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 12. So this is a great approach, especially when we have a number like 7 here on the right-hand side, where 7 represents the distance. But we know distance can't be negative, and it's also a little more complicated to deal with a variable or changing distance. So I would like to introduce a second method where we look at two-dimensional graphs.